Hello and welcome back to Music with Mascots. I'm Ron Rutstein, your host, and I still have a little bit of a cold going on, cold, flu, I don't know what. You can hear in my throat. It's not contagious over the internet. It's not that kind of virus. Today, I'm going to do part one of a phono preamp shootout. I am looking at phono stages under $150. And there's one in particular that I really like. There are two that are decent, and let's say there are two that are good, and one of those two that I particularly like. But first, let's get to the three that I didn't particularly like. I'm also going to be doing a review of moving magnet preamps, and I'm also going to be comparing the same set, because when you buy a moving coil preamp in this price range, it's going to cover both. You're going to have a little switch of some sort that's going to switch from moving magnet to moving coil. A lot of you might not even have a moving coil cartridge, but might aspire to own one later on, in which case this might be an important review for you now if you're looking to spend a little extra and maybe have something that down the road will be more efficient for you. So you might say, okay, I'm going to spend an extra $75 now and get that better preamp so that when I buy that moving coil cartridge, I'll be set. That makes sense if that's a down the road option for you. But let's look at these inexpensive units first. Okay, first off, this little unit from Emotiva. Now the Emotiva preamps, I looked at two of them. These are designed in the US and built in China. They are competitively priced, and it's a partial US thing. So if you're interested in an American product, then this covers part of that base. If you don't want an American product at all, then you don't want the Emotiva. It's okay, but it's not great. It's got a little push button here for moving magnet, moving coil, right there. One's plugged in, the little red light is on, and these little lights here tell you which one you're using. And that's it. It's got a ground, it's got an input and an output, and there you are. Pretty basic. That's all you expect from a little El Cheapo. Not great. I wouldn't invest this. I'd save my money and go up a step. I think this was $59, something like that. One Little Bear and Douk Audio, D-O-U-K. Douk is a Chinese company. They're trying to put out inexpensive products that are maybe better than the competition, and to a certain extent they do so. I'll get into that later. One of theirs is the one that survives this knockout tier. This on the bottom has the switching from moving magnet to moving coil, so you don't even see that when that's on your stereo shelf or whatever. This is what you see. This one has an advantage of having a treble and bass knob and control, and a gain switch for volume, so you can control that to a certain extent. It's also got a headphone jack there, which is kind of a nice thing. If you want to listen to something and your spouse or partner or children or grandparents, whoever's in the house with you, doesn't want to, you can just plug in there. I don't know that most people that aren't really into super high-end do that. They just usually Bluetooth to headphones or earbuds. So I don't know that this type of a thing is going to get much use, but it might. I don't know. That's up to you. In this price range, the Emotiva is a little bit better than this. I'm just going to leave it at that. The controls, you can make adjustments and just about get there. neither one of them are worth the trouble. Next, the Phono box by Project. Now this one is older. Don't know how old this one is. Made in Slovakia. Push button on the back, moving magnet, moving coil. Now I mentioned in a past video that I was not thrilled with this. I don't know what these sell for now, and I don't know if they've upgraded this particular unit. I know they make a line of these, and obviously the more you pay, the more it's worth. This particular one is not doing it for me. The quality of sound coming out is decent. I was using this for quite a while until I decided to do this shootout and try a whole bunch of them, and I was using it because I had this one, and I bought the Denon moving coil cartridge. It is better than nothing, and that's one of my main arguments when it comes to music. What you have is better than what you don't have. I had this, and moving coil with this is better than an inexpensive moving magnet without this. So if this is what you have, so if you bought something and you have this project and you want to go to moving coil, I would suggest you go to moving coil and just push the button on this and use it and save up your bucks until you have enough money for something better. There you are. Put whatever you have on eBay, which is, I'm going to do that with some of this stuff and put it on for next to nothing, and at least get a little bit back out of your investment. So, project does not hold up on this particular preamp as well as I would have liked to have seen it hold up. My little table wobbly, and my dog upstairs is playing with her bone, and you can hear it rolling on the floor. One of the dogs, there are 3. Now, we're going to get to the 2 finalists, and these both came in at $129. We have a semi-tube unit by One Little Bear and Douk Audio. Let's see, I have this one hooked up right now. So let's bring it up here and show you. It has tubes in it that I don't know that they do anything much more than add aesthetics. It has a bass and treble knob, a volume knob. It has a switch so you can go from green lights to amber lights. Everybody needs that, right? And then it's got a phono and auxiliary. So this has 2 inputs in the back. You can have a phono input and an auxiliary input. So if you need that an extra input, you can use this preamp for that. So you can have multiple inputs. It's got a little power button there, right there. There you go. The other one that made it to the end is the Emotiva XPS. I'm going to unplug this. The Emotiva XPS1. Now, this is a little unusual looking for a stereo component. And we'll be discussing that as we get to the pros and cons of the different unit. It has an output with a power plug inlet. It's got an input with a ground and a left and right. It's got, you can set, and this is nice, you can set the ohms, the resistance for the cartridge. And the Denon recommends 100 ohms, and there are cartridges that recommend different settings. So this has 47 ohms, 100 ohms, 470 ohms, and 1000 ohms of resistance available to you. And that's a little nice. So it gives you a wide range of resistance, and you can check your moving coil cartridge and see what it what it suggests you give to it. So you're not just flicking a switch from moving magnet to moving coil. Now, high output moving coil, you're generally fine just using a moving magnet setting. The low output ones are what you need the extra boost for. And a lot of them have very different requirements for impedance. So this gives you that option. Usually you're into much more expensive preamps before you get that option. So this Emotiva does give you that option. That's one big plus. The negative for the Emotiva is it's kind of awkward. It doesn't fit anywhere. I'm going to set it on top of my amplifier. I'm going to have wires going in this way and wires going out that way. You can do that. You can set it behind your amplifier so you never see it. That's probably what they're anticipating you do. It's kind of you set it and leave it. They tell you to go ahead and leave it plugged in. That, the little blue LED that's on all the time doesn't draw any power, and you don't really have to. It draws so minuscule amount of power that it doesn't matter. So I think they're assuming you're just going to leave this behind everything and not pay any attention to it. And if you're going to do that, it's fine. So that's a consideration. If you like to have your equipment all out and you like people to see your equipment, then this becomes a little awkward. You might want to build a little display for it or something like that. I don't know. As far as aesthetics go, from that perspective, the Douk kind of has it beat. I'm going to show you something that the Douk does. Melissa Aldana's new album. Amazing. Go get it. Yeah, you can kind of see it. The little green, bouncy little VU meter kind of things. They come from the top and the bottom. And, yeah, if I shade it, you can really see it. There we go. And it shows up real well in your living room. And for those of you that like meters but don't have it necessarily because, newer equipment doesn't tend to have it, this is going to be a plus. So aesthetically, I'm going to give the Douk Audio tube unit a plus. I don't know that the tubes add anything to the sound of this unit. We're going to get to the sound next. So I listened to quite a bit of music going back and forth between the Emotiva and the Douk. So we've got the Emotiva here and the Douk here. And I did come to a pretty clear conclusion on which one is better for sound. And just so that you see, let's see. So the Emotiva has little switches on top, right and left. Not sure why they made two separate ones, but moving coil to moving magnet, that just bypasses all this stuff. This is only for the moving magnet. And Minu the cat is crawling up here, and we just take her down because there's a record on the turntable, and she wouldn't even be up there if I wasn't here. She's just showing off and wants to be in the video. Yeah, down to the nitty-gritty. All right, they both come in at $129 right now. However, let's get into the differences. Now, the Douk Audio, and it says One Little Bear and Douk Audio and Knob Sound, I think, is another name that you'll find it under on Amazon or one of the other discount places. They manufacture this with different names on it. It's all going to look like this. So for now, I'm going to unplug this and disconnect. Here's the back of the unit. It's got your power in, your ground, your moving magnet and moving coil switch. It Then it's got your two inputs for phono and auxiliary, and your left and right out. Now, on the front, you've got the lights on the tubes. You can have it for, let's see if we can focus in on that, green, off, amber. The green looks best. They tell you that the tubes, even though these are the same, are set for right and left, and they show you got to put the one that's R in the right channel, the one that's L for the left channel, and that they've taken precise measurements to make sure that one is right, one is left. I don't know that one should really be any different from the other. The two channels should be identical, but I went with what they said. It's their product. I put it together the way they said. You get this, it comes obviously with the tubes in a separate packaging. It's boxed very nicely, and it is made in China. www.douk.audio.com. All right. Now, so aesthetically, if you like showing off your equipment, this one is going to look cooler than this one. If you're an audiophile, if you're a true audiophile in that all you're interested in is the sound, you don't care what the equipment looks like. You want the best sound you can get. Let's talk about that. Scratch my eye. There we go. Rock and roll. Basic rock and roll. I put on a couple of different things. So let's start with Billy Joel, Nylon Curtain. Put on a couple of tracks of that. And I also used it to set it up. So one of the things that I wanted to do so that we're comparing apples and oranges is playing the Billy Joel album. I made the adjustments on this to sound as close as possible to this, so that as I moved around from one thing to another, I wouldn't be changing this a lot, because this has the controls, this does not. For some people that will be a plus. For some people that will be a minus, because you do have controls on your integrated amplifier if you have an integrated amplifier. If you have an amplifier that just has volume, then you'll probably want something like this. Most of them don't. Most of them have tone controls. I like using the tone controls on my amplifier, in which case I don't really need these. These do give me an added bit of control. Does that make a difference? It does. But I don't want to play around on every record I put on and change this for every record. There are some of you that will. In that case, this makes a difference. Otherwise, otherwise it doesn't matter. Otherwise, you're paying for something you're not going to use. And in this case, I would be paying for something that I wasn't going to use. But in this case, I used Billy Joel to get this and that to sound the same. I did play around in different genres to try and get them to sound the same, and I couldn't. And we'll get to that in a second. So once I made that setting set, basic rock and roll, I didn't have that much of a difference between one and the other. Both sounded very good, very crisp, very clear. Both had good bass response. Both sounded good in the high end, and good mid-range. Everything you would expect from a moving coil cartridge. Very clean sound. And I would be happy using either one of these in that setting. Close to the Edge, which is one of my go-to listening albums, a little bit better in the Emotiva. A little bit, not a lot. On the acoustic parts, the acoustic guitar parts in NU and I, the acoustic guitar sounded a little better with the Emotiva. The bass parts, I would say the deep bass parts, the Douk audio might have been a little better. And again, that's something that was adjustable. I was able to play with the adjustment on the stereo and boost the bass to where this was. So you can argue that that's a control issue and not a preamp issue. Play with that as you may. So you can say there they were pretty close together. Crosby, Stills, Nash, no Young, but with Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Sacco, and Vanzetti. George Carlin. Judy Blue Eyes. Now that is a song that starts off in acoustic. Now this is an acoustic heavy album. And it's a very tinny sound in the beginning. And actually that whole song is. I don't know what they're playing there, if they're playing a dobro or if they're playing mandolin or something like that, but the instrument has a tinny sound, which is natural. You expect that in that song. And you're okay with that. You're used to it. This amplifier, this preamp, really boosted that tinniness to the point where it was unlistenable. I had to run over to the controls and turn it down. The Emotiva did not do that. It gave me a very clean sound, very precise, and it gave me, I don't want to use the word warmer, but it gave me the kind of sound that I was, in this case, expecting. And I don't particularly like the sound of that song to begin with, but I wanted to use it as a comparison because of the way the song sounds. It's a good song. It's very shrill. And my ears don't particularly like it. Now, that's not going to be true for many of you. However, if you like that shrill sound, this will do that for you. This one is not going to make that sharper than it already is. And I don't want that sharper than it already is. Jazz. I use Melissa Aldana's new album, Feelin'. I'm not sure how they pronounce this. This is a Cuban ballads album. Beautiful album. I'm going to do a review of this in another video. Her sax playing is amazing. And on the second cut on side B, Little Church, there are alternating sax and piano parts, and it's just gorgeous. On the first track there, Las Rosas No Hablan, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing that terribly. We have the wonderful Cecile McLaurin Salvant, who's appearing on everything that's coming out these days. Her voice is just gorgeous. She sings on two pieces on this album, which is why her name doesn't appear here. She's just a guest artist on two of the pieces, and both are exceptional pieces, and her voice is just joyous to hear, miraculous. And side B, the song on side B, where she is singing, you're just listening to it, and it's just glorious. And then she stops, and the sax comes in, and it's just beautiful. It just kind of lays you back. The sound stage in that is very good, and the music is wonderful, and both did well. The Emotiva, I'm going to give it the edge. I'm going to say that this one brought out the beauty of the voice and the sax a little bit more than the Douk did. It felt a little more natural. Now, you're not supposed to say that about a tube versus a solid state, but it's like I said, I'm not so sure the tubes are doing anything here other than aesthetically. Yeah, I don't know. Then we get to, I did listen to a couple other jazz albums, and similar results. I found that the Emotiva a little bit warmer, especially the acoustic jazz. The electric jazz, fusion type stuff, not so much of a difference. Kind of like the rock and roll, mostly there wasn't that much of a difference. So keep that in mind if you don't listen to acoustic music and you don't listen to acoustic jazz or classical, then you might like to go with the tube just for the visuals and for the meter kind of effect that the larger tube has. But then we get into classical. When it comes to classical music, we just throw this in the garbage, okay? Because the Emotiva blows it out of the water. Price point exactly the same. But this is where it shines. Now, the acoustic instruments, this is better than the other one. Noticeably. Classical music, if you're a classical music enthusiast, this one just blows it up. It blows it up. I'll tell you my experience. The first thing I was listening to with classical music, and I had the Denon cartridge at the time on the Techniques, and I had everything adjusted so that the vertical tracking angle was accurate and set. I had Shostakovich's first piano concerto being played by Marc-Andre Hamelin, one of my favorite pianists. The man is amazing, and his performance on this piece is spectacular. Yu Zhuang also has a very good performance of this as well, but I prefer Marc-Andre Hamelin's on this, and it is available on vinyl. Most of his stuff is only available on compact disc. Yu Zhuang's stuff through DG is coming out on vinyl and compact disc, and I did use one of her albums for comparison here too. Now, the piano sounded very good through both on this particular disc. However, the orchestra, especially through the slow movement, the second movement, where there's maybe the third movement, there's a muted trumpet or something, a muted brass instrument going on, and the orchestra is mellow, and the muted instrument is mellow, and it sounded like mud on this, like it was coming through an AM radio. It sounded crisp and clear and beautiful with the Emotiva. Same price. Big difference in sound here. So earlier today, I continued on the exploration of acoustic music, and I did the jazz fill-in album, fill-in, and then I moved back to classical. And at first I had the tube, the Douk, on, and put on Nathan Milstein's, or Milstein, I don't know how he pronounced it. I put on this album of the Bach sonatas and partitas for solo violin. In my opinion, my humble opinion, there are 3 outstanding recordings of the complete sonatas and partitas that I have heard. There are probably more, but I stick with the 3 I got. Occasionally I'll listen to pieces of other people's recordings to see if I'm maybe missing something, and sometimes I listen to more of them, but I have my favorites. Milstein is the only one of the 3 that I have on vinyl, and this is, if I had to choose one of the 3 to listen to all the time, it would be this one, and this is in particularly good condition. So this was a good comparison for me, and I know the music very, very well. Some of these are transcribed for classical guitar, and I've played a number of those pieces. Plus, I love the sound of the violin and the original versions of these. Milstein plays them beautifully. So I started with the Douk audio, and I played the partita number 1, and started with the Allemande. I put it on, I was listening to it. I was kind of standing there and listening to it, listen to the whole thing. And, okay, that's pretty good. That's not bad at all. I took it off. I switched the preamps over. I put it on the Emotiva. Put it down on the Allemande again. And I'm listening. And I kind of go, oh. And then I found myself sitting down and listening. Then when it ended, the next piece started. I didn't want to get up and take it off. I wanted to keep listening. I was doing a sound experiment, and I didn't want to get up and take it off to move on to the next process, the next piece of my sound experiment. That's how good it sounded with the Denon cartridge and the Emotiva preamp. Eventually, I motivated myself. I said, okay, I need to see if this is reproducible. So orchestrally, we know this was mud in some places. It wasn't bad in other places, but in some places it was mud. With the solo violin, this one was just very outstanding. Now, mind you, I'm at preamps that are under $150. I do not own a more expensive preamp than that to compare this to. And if somebody wants me to compare something to that's more than $150, they're going to have to send it to me, because I'm not wealthy. Okay, compared to a lot of people, I am wealthy. I am very rich in that I am loved by my family, loved by my wife, and I have stuff. So next I moved to Yuja Wang, the Vienna Recital album. And I put on Malaga by Albanese. Albanese is a beautiful, beautiful composer. I love his music. And, I don't think that Yuja Wang is necessarily the best interpreter of his music, but this is an excellent album overall. 2-disc set, clear vinyl. I got the clear vinyl one. Most of Yuja Wang's work is excellent. The multi-disc giant Rachmaninoff experiment that she did with Dunamel, don't go there. Her separate Rachmaninoff pieces are much better. So I put this on, and I was listening to it through the Emotiva first, because that was the one I had on. Very clear, very lively, very clean sounding. And I listened to it through, and I took it off when that track was over. I put on the Douk. It did not do well with that particular piece. And frankly, I can't tell you why it would perform so differently with classical music than it did with the other forms of music. But this was again, it muddied the water, it muddied the sound. So if you listen to any amount of classical music, I would steer you away from this unit and toward this unit. For $129, if you have to buy a moving coil cartridge, get this one. Okay, again, if you've made it this far, please hit like and subscribe. It will really help my channel grow. And we are living in tumultuous times. Please be kind to one another. Pray for peace. Even if you don't believe in prayer, just kind of close your eyes and say, I hope all this ends. Can't do more than that. Be nice to your neighbors. Be nice to your friends. Be nice to your enemies. Avoid your enemies. What are you going to do? don't encourage people to harm each other. If you find yourself wanting to harm someone, walk away. If you find yourself watching social media and you find yourself getting angry, turn it off. Listen to music. There's so much beautiful music out there. Dive into it. It's humanity at its best. It's humanity at its most gorgeous. Try and be better today than you were yesterday. Thank you very much.